Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and this week I am the hostess of the Color Throwdown Challenge. So if you are interested in that, you can check it out on my blog. I'll have a link to it and all that fun stuff. So for my card, I decided to use the Mama Elephant Timeless Tulips set that I got not too long ago. And I chose Bristol Smooth this time. I was kind of wanting to experiment a little bit. And I said in a more recent video that I seem to be having luck again with the Bristol Smooth. It just seems to be working. So I took a piece of that, put it in my Mini Misty, and I used my anti-static powder tool. And then I inked up the stamp with Versamark ink. So slow, clear, drying, sticky ink. And I'm using my Hero Arts white embossing powder. So sprinkling that over the image, tapping off the excess into the coffee filter. And then I'm going to heat that up with my heat tool until it is completely melted. That's something I'm really liking about this embossing powder. I was using a different brand for the longest time, which is still really good. But this one, I just really like how it melts. It's hard to kind of explain, but it just has a really nice finish to it. So anyway, I got the embossing powder back in a container, funneled it back, and people ask me about the coffee filters. I reuse the same one just over and over again because I use white embossing powder 99% of the time. So until it gets like contaminated with like lint or random other embossing powders or whatever, I just use the same one. So I grabbed the little Art Impressions plastic palette here, and I'm just using Distress inks for my watercoloring and my little water brush. And I started off with just doing one petal first because I wasn't exactly sure how this was going to work, how the colors were going to move or anything like that. And I got the area wet first with just the clean water, and then I was picking up, I'm using sponge sugar and milled lavender for my pink and purple here. And I applied the sponge sugar first towards the top of the petal and then the milled lavender at the bottom, and then kind of let them blend into each other a little bit. And I got the area wet first so that the color could move a little bit more. That's usually where I have the most trouble with Bristol Smooth, like trying to do any sort of watercolor on it, is I find usually it's difficult to move the color around. So getting the area wet first usually helps out a lot. I wouldn't overwork it. Anyone, if you're at all familiar with watercolor or just using water on paper in general, if you overwork it, like basically go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, keep trying to add layers, anything like that, the paper will start to pill. So I was trying to be very gentle with this, but this worked fine. And I was happy with how the color's working. So after I did that first, one or two test petals, then I just did the whole flower. It was faster that way. So I got the whole flower wet and then would add the pink and then add the purple and kind of let them do their thing. So just really, really simple because the color combo that is for this week is just a really pale pink, a pale purple, and a pale blue. So I still needed to pull some green into it because there's all this greenery with this image. So I just used shabby shutters for this, and I super sped this up because I didn't do anything special at all. I literally just kind of picked up the color with a water brush and then just painted it on. I also painted right over, there's like these little clusters of smaller flowers in this image, but I just painted over it with the green. You could take the time to, do them in different colors, whatever works, but I just didn't really want to be bothered. Plus, as usual, I'm behind and just running out of time. So I just kept it really, really simple. And then when it was done, I wanted to add some shimmer. So I grabbed my Spectrum Noir Clear Sparkle brush. Now this does reactivate watercolor or anything that is activated by water, such as Distress inks. But I just went over the flowers and then would scribble off anything if it was picking up too much color and all that kind of stuff. So I went over the flowers with that, and then I went over the little bow and the tag, and just kind of lightly went over the little, what are supposed to be little bunches of flowers, just because I could. So went over that, and then I'm going to turn the flash on my phone so you can see just how pretty the shimmer is with this. I just love it. It's so subtle. And then when the light hits it, the sparkle just pops out. It's so much fun. So once everything was completely dry, I took my little cutter bee scissors here and trimmed out this image. It didn't take very long because it's all kind of clustered together, so I don't have to do a whole lot of detail cutting. But when I'm doing fussy cutting like this, I find it's easiest to hold the scissors for the most part in one position, and it's the paper I move around. So it's just easier to kind of get in and around everything. And then I cut off the excess because it starts getting in the way a bit. And I just go around the image. So once I had everything cut out, I want to do the base for this. So I took another piece of Bristol Smooth, and I die cut it with the largest wonky stitched rectangle Stacks Dynamics from My Favorite Things. And then I grabbed some tumbled glass Distress ink. And this is the thing I love the most about Bristol Smooth cardstock, is how it takes ink when you're sponging on it. the ink just glides because of that coating. You get less marks. It doesn't streak as much. It just goes on so nicely, so much less effort. With other cardstocks, a lot of times you really have to work at it. You have to be really careful and take a lot of extra time. And I just don't have time for that. So I really prefer Bristol Smooth for something like this, especially when I'm trying harder to have a lighter hand, which is what I was doing here. I was inking up my blending tool and then kind of rubbing off the excess on a scrap of cardstock there and then bringing it to the paper. So I just got a nice softer look, because I've said this a lot lately. I usually have a heavy hand. I really like to just saturate and add all the color. So I wanted a really soft kind of background with that. And then I just squeezed some water back onto that palette, and I just picked it up with a little paintbrush here, and I'm tapping it against my fingers to get a little bit of a splatter. It's hard to see in the video, and even in real life, it's just a very, very subtle splatter effect. Once the ink completely dried and the water dried, you let it sit for a bit, and then you pick it up with a paper towel, and you get that fun little reaction with the distress ink, so that fun little splatter effect. Just subtle, but it's there. So once that was done, I ran the Scripty Friend die, also from Mama Elephant, through my Big Shot machine with some black cardstock, and I die cut it 3 times, and then I'm going to stack these all together using my Tonic Nouveau adhesive. So just trying to apply a really thin bit of adhesive. I'm finding with this stuff though, when it does ooze out, I just quickly wipe it away with my finger. And because it's just a normal, I guess you'd call it, adhesive, it's not gummy or sticky, which is something I hate getting on my fingers. I do not like getting adhesive on my fingers. It drives me insane. But with this, it's not like that because it's just a normal glue. It's not a multi-purpose or anything like that. So I stacked the sentiments together. And then I wanted to stamp a sentiment from that same Timeless Tulip set, but I didn't like how that sentiment originally was. So to save me from having to like mask or tape off anything, etc., I just cut the sentiment apart. You just do it really, really carefully to make sure you don't cut into the actual like stamp area itself. So I just cut it apart, and that way I can use it how I'm going to now, or I can, put it back together and use it how it was intended, whatever works. But I lined up the U on the bottom of this little sponged panel here and used my Mini Missy to stamp that along the bottom with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I moved the other part of the sentiment off to the side instead of above it how it was originally meant to be, and stamped that in the same way. And once that was stamped, my original intention was to pop up these tulips with foam tape. I thought of like, having them all popped up, that would look great. But then as I was thinking about that, I'm like, then I'm going to have to pop up the sentiment because it's going to go over the tulips. And then I was like, then I'm going to have to trim off little pieces of foam tape. And I was like, no, I'm not dealing with that. That's going to take way too long. So I liked how the edges of this were kind of just naturally curled up. So instead I just added adhesive right to the center of this cluster of tulips, and then the edges are popped up kind of on their own. And off camera I ended up tucking a little bit of foam tape here and there just along the top edges of the flowers so that they'll stay popped up like that. So it just kind of gave it that little bit of extra dimension and kept the center area flat so that I can adhere this die cut sentiment right over that and not have to fiddle with any more foam tape or anything like that. So I added the same Nouveau adhesive to that and then just pressed that down onto my card front. And then the little dot for the eye, I just added a dot of adhesive to the image here, and then just picked up the dot of the eye with my little crystal katana and pressed that into place. So once that was done, I was, again, originally going to make my card base out of white cardstock, or the Bristol Smooth, so everything's all matchy-matchy. But then decided to pull out some purple cardstock instead. So this is it Periwinkle? I have it written down. Where did it go? Wild Wisteria. It's Wild Wisteria cardstock from MFT, and I cut it in half, so it's 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and scored it at 5 1/2, so it'll be a top folding A2 size card. Then I adhered my card front with foam tape, and the minute I did it, I was like, I should have waited and finished the inside first, because it kind of makes it a little difficult to use with the Mini Misty. But it was still workable. If I was to do this again, I would finish the inside of the card, then adhere the outside. But it still worked. So I put it back in my Mini Misty here, and I lined up the tulip image again. And this time I'm inking it up with that Distress Milled Lavender ink. I'm stamping that onto the inside of the card. And then I grabbed another sentiment from the Timeless Tulip set, lined that up, and I'm going to stamp that with the VersaFine Onyx Black. So that finishes off the inside of the card. And then as a final touch to the outside, I pulled out the Simon Says Stamp Vintage Chic Sequins. The colors, of course, were perfect for this challenge. So I was like, oh, here we go. So, of course, I was rather liberal with these. I was only going to add a couple and then, more just kept falling on the card. So once I was like, okay, that's enough. So I just used the Tonic Nouveau again to adhere these sequins, just little tiny dabs of it. Picked up the sequin with my crystal katana, put down a dab of adhesive, pressed it into place, and that was it. And that finished off this card. So like I mentioned earlier, if you are interested in the color challenge, would like to play around and join us, we have a link up tool where you can link the cards you create following this color scheme. That will be linked in my blog post, which is linked directly below the video, as well as all of the supplies used, all that info will be on my blog in the description box directly below the video. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.